if one of the biggest players in the media game is about to probably most likely, and we are full guessing, this is a swag, a sophisticated, wild a guess, but with a little common sense, because we're common scented folks. Yeah, go ahead and start. And says, well, should I do a podcast? Yes. If you have the bandwidth, yes. If you don't have the bandwidth, yes.
No, because I want to dive. I want to go there. I want to rabbit.
Providing you have something valuable to say. Let's put it that way.
What is up, entrepreneurs? Welcome back to the Video Simplified podcast. This is part 2 of a conversation I'm having with my buddy and brother, content extraordinaire, Doc Rock, where we're talking about YouTube podcast. The first half, if you haven't checked that out, make sure you do so. We talked about just the creator mindset and some of the deals and things that comes back of, honestly, the longevity of staying in the podcast game, as well as being a creator as a whole. This week, we're diving more into the YouTube podcast side of the conversation. So let's go ahead and dive right into this week's episode. I think a lot of people ask them question like, will YouTube stick to doing this? Will they care? Like, because I've seen, and I talked about this on the social media marketing show, where the tab, when you're especially on mobile, when you go there, you'll see it based up or listed based on your interests. And so the priority there is things that are, first of all, it'll be the all tab, then it'll be the new to you. Everything else following after that is based on categorizing your interests to get you to stay on platform longer by better curating the content in a way that's segmented on your specific interest based on your behavior on the platform. It's because of this that I saw that the tabs on mine specifically, because I've been watching it, whether somebody had a dedicated podcast, it was just a playlist on their YouTube, regular YouTube channel, whatever. I didn't care. If I vibe with that creator or I vibe with that kind of information, you got a video podcast, whatever, YouTube is my go-to platform. It makes sense for me to do that. If I'm driving, I can switch to audio only mode or keep it rolling if I want to. You sit in the parking lot. Like it's the best of both worlds for me. But I saw this go from position number 6 or 7 on the tabs to position 2 or 3. YouTube does not make small decisions in that way. Like even if they ditch something, like people are talking about like Google Hangouts. Well, they just gonna do this the same way they did Google Hangouts. I don't think so.
See, it's funny how people say that mess about Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts did a lot for them. Mm-hmm. You know what Google Hangouts? See, let me back up. Who said that? Tell them to come and see Uncle Doc so I can go ahead and put a size 12 Adidas, in the split. You know what I am today? People, look at me. People at home listening to me. I'm a live streamer. I live stream 6 days a week. Mm-hmm. You know where live streaming was skunk worked? Google Hangouts.
For many years.
You know what I'm saying? Google Hangouts is now YouTube Live, player. Like it is what it is.
Recently.
So YouTube Live is 2014, but not really, like really hard push 2017. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was part of the experiment. That was building the test. That was getting the W9 codec down. That was getting the audio correct. That was understanding the servers, how much server load. That's called research, player.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody don't know, like why does this man come to the golf course and have 4 buckets of balls every day? Because he's trying to get on the PGA. You did not go into the golf course every day to hit 4 buckets of balls for no reason. That's 400 shots, right? Unless you go to the cheap golf course, they give you 50 balls for your bucket. But like at my golf course, they give you 100 balls for the bucket. So that's 400 shots. He practicing every day. Daytime, go to work all day, come back. Nighttime, he practicing. Next thing you know, boom. Everybody, I can tell you right now, people like Michelle, you want to go to the club? Nope, going to the golf course. Damn, you always at the golf course. Beach is kicking. Let's go surf. Nope, going to the golf course. Then one day, they're like, oh, Michelle, she tired. All she ever do is golf. And then one day, ladies and gentlemen, stepping up to the first tee from Honolulu, Hawaii, Michelle Wee. And then it's like, Now she's balling. Oh, Michelle, can I get your autograph? Can I take a picture? Nah, because when I was trying to play golf and y'all wanted to go to the beach, y'all was clowning. Now y'all all over here trying to be my friend. So some people just do work that way.
That's the main thing to go down that rabbit hole when people would say, especially people I used to work with, not everybody. I don't want to make it seem like everybody I work with, because some people are genuinely, tremendously amazing people, good sweethearts, not those people. The other jerks would just be like, oh, they'd be like, how's your little podcast going? How's your little
I love those.
How's your little YouTube channel going? I remember I had like, I think it was maybe somewhere 200 to 500 subscribers, maybe. I think I was getting close to the 500 because I didn't hit 500 until November or October of 2018. I hit 500 subscribers because I remember I was at Grow with Video Live, the very first one. And like I was in the food court and it just hit like 500. So I remember it very distinctly. I think it was like November 2018. But prior to that, it was like we were at like a huddle or something. And I remember standing up and people were saying something. They was like, you always on YouTube or whatever. And it's just like, I'm studying. Like that's what I have a journal for every day that I'm with. I line up playlists of content for the specific, like I was learning about cameras. I was learning about content creation. I was learning about copywriting. I was learning about podcasting because I started, which most people don't know, I had a podcast before that I dumped, which I probably shouldn't have in hindsight, but I had probably had like 200 something episodes there. And I started off with podcasts because I was afraid of the camera. Okay, after maybe 6 months to a year of doing that, obviously I need to do video in a way that's just more than making a video for my website, hoping to draw more traction to the website when it made sense to not be on Facebook, not only prioritize my website, but instead post to where the people actually search for the stuff. And like I had this weird kind of you see me on Facebook, but go to the website and that web video on the website is to YouTube. And it just like when I remember writing it on paper, the arrows of the direction of how confusing is it to get people to do something based on what I've set up. And it was dumb. And I said, screw Facebook, screw posting the videos only to the website with the intent to get them there. Why not just go to literally where most people are going anyway for that kind of content and let me learn how to create that specific content. And I remember I was super geeked because I had hit something like 200. So at this huddle, everybody was just looking like you said that out loud. They expected me to say like 2 million. And I'm just like, when you realize what the work it takes to get to 200 is, let's have a conversation. And they was like, you got that camera with you every day. You always watching. Now, Pandemic hit a little bit before then. Well, I had quit before the February 1st, 2019. Shaved my head, and I wanted to grow my hair out. #dreads. So did that, and it was like a month. No, it was a month. Like I knew already I wanted to quit. I knew for a long time I wanted to quit, but you just kind of get stuck in that rut. Fast forward, May 10th. 2019, about 9:40 a.m. Supervisor comes out the restroom, and I had it up to the ceiling, to the sky, with everything.
You know, you had it up to here.
Had it up to here. Yeah, all the way up to here. Look, you know the old players up to here. They ain't going past the jawline, up to here.
No, yeah.
And just like I had enough. And I remember I did a live stream. It was a Friday. It was a pay Friday. I knew by the time I was done getting and paying all my bills, I calculated I have like $92 or $96 to my name. And that's after all the bills, no money, no savings, no nothing. And that was the day that I quit. Fast forward a year, Pandemic is starting to, you see people get fired. They had laid off people like a month or so later after I had quit, and it just kept coming and coming. They had laid off people before I had quit. Oh. So now the little podcast, the little YouTube channel, now all these DMs come. How you really make money on YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
So
and then be wanting the instructions.
So, so I think for those creators asking about the validity of YouTube, those questions still come. And so even more so the validity of, will YouTube podcasts stick? I'd venture to say there's going to be somebody that's similar in a similar situation. You could be listening to this podcast for all I know, that is in a similar situation. You listening to this as your job. You may shake my hand on stage, and one day I may shake your hand as you come off stage a couple years later, not even that many. You know what I'm saying? Like the tides change. So I think this YouTube coming for podcasts, and more specifically video podcasts, is going to be a reckoning to the industry. 100%.
That's the funny part is, by the time you finish going, okay, first of all, how much work does it really take nowadays to start a podcast? No, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it is easier than ever before.
True.
Straight up, right?
It's simple. It's simple. The concepts are simple.
Right. I have a lot of understanding about, I'm being somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm being somebody, and I have a lot of information about Smash Mouth. I just said that because I said I'm somebody, and then somebody once told me the world was going to roll me. Ain't the chapter 2. Anyway,
lyrics.com. And don't go to that website. I don't know where it takes you.
Yeah, please don't go where it goes. Be some chick named Lyric OnlyFans.
Okay.
Anyway, so I go to Anchor, not a fan, but go to one of these joints, open it up, turn it on, and then be like, this is the Smash Mouth Podcast, episode 1. I am Doc. Today I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite songs. What did they really mean by the song All-Star? Let's break this down one verse at a time. This week we'll cover the first verse. Next week we'll go to the next verse. And then we'll get into some of the history, individual topics about members in the band. I hope you're going to enjoy this. Remember, you can pick this up at Spotify, Apple, Google Play, wherever podcasts get this guy. Anyway, so you go into your little 5-minute history piece about that first refrain, not being the sharpest tool in the shed, right? I know it's an outdated statement, but here it is, blah, blah, blah. Okay, boom, done. Upload. That's it. I literally just did it. And I get these questions. How do you start a podcast? Should have started a podcast, and how are you going to do it? And blah, blah. Like, if you want to do it simple, that's it. What I just did, soup to nuts, is the entire thing, right? Mm-hmm. Do you want to go add your graphic and all that other stuff? Yes, you can. That's later, but it is simpler than ever. So a lot of people are going to say, should I make a podcast? Look, fam, it's already too late, but that's okay. If the best time to start a podcast was yesterday, the second best time to start is today. Okay, cool. Now we got that out the way. If one of the biggest players in the media game is about to probably, most likely, and we are full guessing, this is a swag, a sophisticated, wild a guess, but with a little common sense, because we're common-scented folks. Go ahead and start. And says, well, should I do a podcast? Yes. If you have the bandwidth, yes. If you don't have the bandwidth, yes.
No, because I want to dive. I want to go there. I want to rabbit.
Providing you have something valuable to say. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'm just saying, because the bandwidth conversation
is a myth. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, to some extent, I feel like that's, again, another excuse. I think for some people it is valid.
That's why I said yes to both. I'm like, if you do have the bandwidth, yes. And if you don't have the bandwidth, yes. Because yes, bandwidth is a myth, but these are the words that people use. So it helps to explain it to them in their own terms, and then you can just take it back from them.
True.
So yes, that's why I said it that way.
I feel you. I just feel like for those that will still be like, yeah, but to the, the yeah, but is everywhere community. I just don't play around with it. Okay, so
let's put it this way. You are a Cardinal fan. I am a Red Sox fan, right? Let's just say we there's not even a real rivalry there per se. But let's just say, we traded the pitchers and whatever, and then one of our teams was doing good, one of our teams was doing bad after that trade. We could immediately go the, player one, player two podcast where me and the family member just sit down and argue about the benefits of that trade. That eventually becomes in there. So what do you guys think about, Meta World Peace getting back into the game? Oh, we can talk about that. Oh, what do you guys think about so-and-so? All of a sudden, people who are listening will start asking you about, what do you think about, right? So for instance, we could be, what do you think about Brian Flores suing 3 NFL teams because they kind of like jacked him on his interview, quote unquote, not doing the Rooney Rule as required in the NFL? What do you think about 2022 now having no black coaches when we just came from having like 5? Like, what's happening to the NFL? How is the NFL getting more non-melanated as a coaching, brotherhood goes? So there's a lot. So you can trigger this. There are brother-in-laws right now every single Saturday or Sunday on the back porch with slits in hand having this argument. If they recorded it and put it on the internet, people would be watching it.
I think the best example, and I need people to listen to the example and substitute the person with whomever you want. Because this is so on my mind and like I'm just watching it like a hawk, one of the biggest podcasts, which was Logan Paul's podcast, Impulsive, I decided to go down the rabbit hole and I wanted to start looking into major players on YouTube that, for good, bad, or otherwise, are popular, and listen to their podcast content and just like start to take an objective look at it. If you knew nothing about this person other than they're very popular on YouTube, they have a large fan base, whatever, stuff like that, and just go listen. And you know what I found? It was very enjoyable. And it has nothing to do with show structure or nothing. I literally was just kind of like glued to the screen watching an episode where they had their phones and the Rode Video Mic Me L with the wind furry thing on it. And they just did like this the whole time. And it was like sitting on a couch and somewhere in the house or whatever. It's not no studio setup or whatever. And they all like in coats, whatever, it's wherever they at. They just like this. And all of them. And if somebody needs to say something and they didn't have one, they pass the phone. And that's the audio that you're hearing. So it's no plosives in that regard. And I'm just like, freaking genius. And the phone quality looking thing, you could tell which one was a dedicated, probably like mirrorless or DSLR camera, probably at this point a mirrorless camera. It could be a cinema camera for all I know. You could tell which one, like when they would pop that footage in. But otherwise, it looked like it was footage that just like captured on smartphones.
Oh, no. In the beginning, they did mostly everything with GoPros because they were like not really sponsored, but kind of a little bit sponsored by GoPros. So they did the majority of their stuff with GoPros back in the day. That was kind of when they blew up. I mean, but you figure between the two of them, like Jake and Logan, I mean, yeah, between the two of them, they're worth like 65 milli for just being clowns on the internet.
But it goes deeper than that.
It goes deeper than that. I was going to say, it's very easy to say that because that's the surface, right? That's what people, that's what they want you to think.
Exactly.
They are a marketing empire. That's what they want you to think. But, hey.
I encourage people, like whoever it is, like, because YouTube is the dominant and primary platform of where we are. But if your specific space is Facebook, if it's TikTok, go and really look at the person that you probably otherwise wouldn't look at and have an objective view of what are they doing. And I've watched now like at least 5 episodes that, like, we had this conversation before about, obviously not in the podcast, just like privately, about the other issue with like David Dobrik and the gentleman who, got his face kind of like smashed in or whatever, like because of the accident, like the whole big thing. And I went and listened to some of his podcasts, similar kind of a setup, if you will, whatever. But you look at from their rawer versions of the podcast versus those where they are in the studio. And the difference is nothing. Essentially, like you get the little bit better quality. Maybe they can roll the video or something like that. But the guys are smart. Like I said, they really, really are. And that's why I said when people talk about bandwidth, should I become one? Like, should smaller creators do that? And granted, there is a line when you are, because you can look at even YouTube's podcast that we talked about before, that is called The Upload. They're just doing the audio version with a bouncing waveform at the bottom and an image, static image. It's not changing. Maybe there are captions, maybe there aren't. There's always like automatic captions on YouTube videos, but there's no like serious effort. If you listen to the audio quality, obviously, if you're an audio nerd, if you're a tech nerd or what have you, you may hear the difference. I heard the difference, but it's mostly sounds like something from a space that isn't sound treated and something from a source that isn't that great, but it has nothing to do with more or less the quality of the content. Maybe over time that improves or what have you. And there is a line from doing the bare minimum kind of the stuff that may not work for you versus what does work for the largest platforms. But I do think it shows what's possible. I absolutely could see those same two brother-in-laws that sit every Saturday on the porch talking with the phone in the hand, roll video mic me L's. And for those of you who want that, I'll put a link in the show notes. But that phone set up, and you have your phone sitting there and you're just on it riffing. Because I did an Instagram live. Instagram played me, talking about the internet wasn't great. I pay for fantastic internet. I'm sitting in the same room of the internet. I know there was no problem. They just know I'm Team YouTube and tried to play me. I digress. People was like, this is absolute fire. This is bomb. And I'm just like, okay. And somebody asked, well, what are you using? Are you sure this isn't on a camera? This is on my iPhone 11. It's not even a Pro, I don't think. I just think it's like the regular iPhone 11. And I'm like, you know what the difference is? The audio is decent and the lighting is great. It literally doesn't take much. And I think people are going to overthink this that are looking into doing a pod. They're going to look at the best version of whoever's in their space, niche, or industry, or who they respect, and think I need to do that first before I do the hand and the phone kind of a thing and iPhone or smartphone quality videos, which are stellar. You got the iPhone 13. But matter of fact, let's segue. Doc, we went to a wonderful place. We went to Albany, New York. We went out for a night on the town. Just so happens it was evening, and we were coming around a corner. You just so happened to have the iPhone 13. Please tell the people about the experience.
I had not really, for real, as they say, FR, I had not really tried what it looks like to shoot cinematic video in just streetlights. Okay. I was floored. I have been in video since cameras came in 3 pieces. And when I pulled that sucker up and I looked at it, I was just like floored. I was geeking out like, yo, y'all got to see this. Like people looking at me, why does it do weird? It was amazing. So we definitely are at a level where camera quality is quite amazing. External, just clip a Ceramonic or a Rode mic to the bottom of your phone and you're in business. So simple. You don't really need to do that. The mics are good now, but doing that just makes it better.
Right.
Yeah, excuses are getting to be a little bit harder. Like your story, the muster, that's it. They ain't going to pass muster. And that's not what a D, people. Please do not say pass mustard. That's a different thing. Muster is when you collect all of the parts and you count them. And then if something is missing, it does not pass muster. Okay. I just had to fix that because people are like, oh, it won't even pass mustard. What are we talking about? Hot dogs?
This is what the Quick Trip wouldn't even put this on the counter. This wouldn't pass mustard.
Anyway, Team No Ketchup, by the way. I'm from New York.
I put barbecue sauce. Barbecue
sauce is acceptable, but ketchup, no. I'm Team No Ketchup. I am New York. We do not put ketchup on the hot dog. Anyway, we digress. We're gonna get hate mail on this first episode. People be like, Diana, who was that fool you had on your show?
Right, Doc. Do you know that you're the very first guest? And I think it was something like overall, and I'm talking about from the Anchor days of like on the phone. Like I think it's like I call it like She Rocks Her Biz or something, just like to call it something, and eventually converted it into the Video Simplified podcast. But overall, audio listings, you are the very first guest of like 200 something episodes.
Wow, pretty dope. Pretty dope. That's that's crazy. Because yeah, you have put in the. Oh, yeah, I'm about to. And you know what I just thought of? We're talking about the low friction, right? About somebody making a podcast. People go back into Diana's socials and look around mid-October, and you're going to see something that was done jokingly that actually had legs, right? Because it was creative. Diana was in the swing set. We were at this axe throwing place in Albany, New York, right? And there's a swing set hanging from the ceiling. So Diana was in the swing set just messing around. And then our homegirl, Anna Hill, she got in the other swing set. And it was funny because Anna's feet barely touched the ground. Diana's feet do not touch the ground. So they were just swinging back and forth. So Diana jokingly pulls out her phone to capture this glorious moment with good friends and good people, right? It was a night to remember. She pops open her little thing and she goes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the inaugural edition of the Swinging Things podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Miss Diana Gladney, and our guest today is Miss Anna Hill. And they were having a fun conversation in these two swings, like it was in the South on the oak tree somewhere. Absolutely hilarious. And each, because it's an Instagram reel, each podcast, if you will, was only like a minute long. But
Right.
you think TikTok, it could have been a 3-minute conversation with your friend. And if you were to go out your crib right now and find a mighty oak and put 2 swings on there and set up a camera and some mics, you could invite random people from the way to come through and have a 3-minute conversation and roll them on TikTok. And I guarantee you millions of people would watch it.
Right.
Because that's the low-hanging fruit of creating a podcast.
Yes. Those stories, when I shared those stories, was some of the most viewed stories of the Albany trip. That funny, and like going to BA, just because like, or like, so again, it's like, so every new person that comes and sit on the swing was a new episode. It's a new guest. And so I had Rob on there. I don't think I had you on the show, but I know Anna did.
I was busy making the recording of "You Got a Friend."
Exactly. Exactly. So I have to reshare the week that this podcast comes. I'm gonna reshare it on the story so y'all can see what we're talking about. But
because it was funny, bro.
Right. So it's
brilliant
because it's one question, like literally like one answer, and that's the show. It's enough for, like I said, just barely a minute per person, if that. And what was funny is like Rob is so tall. He just went like rocked from with his feet firmly on the ground, rocked from his toe to like maybe barely his heel. And then I'm just now getting to the swing. I'm like, Rob, you got to go with me. Otherwise, when we out of sync, it don't work. So,
oh my goodness. It was glorious.
Everybody loved it but honestly, it doesn't take much to do a podcast. And I think people just gonna overthink it, or they can feel, no, that's ghetto. And I get it. I personally, when I first got started, was like, I don't want to just do it on my phone. So I went and got the Audio-Technica ATR 2100. Now they have the 2100X, which is USB-C. One I had was just a USB micro, old school. And I still have that. I literally let my cousin borrow it because she needed to do an interview. And they asked specifically for her to have great audio and for her to not have the speakers on the computer play that. She was like, I'm pretty sure you have something that I can borrow. I'm like, of course I do. I have something that will work via USB. You plug and play. You need to install no drivers, know nothing about nothing. I'll give you the stand, which costs like $9 or something on Amazon, and you'll be ready. And she still had, and I know she likes it so much, she ain't called to give it back. But it's a $60 microphone that sounds, I would venture to say, as good or up there with this Shure SM7B, which both of us are speaking on.
There you go. Back in the day, there's a great podcast. Actually, it probably still exists. I just haven't listened for a while because I got really good at the grammar. There was a thing with Mignon Fogarty called Grammar Girl. We're talking like a 3-4 minute podcast that came out basically every day. And all she would do is punch you through some grammar, you know, some misnomers. And they were just gorgeous, right? And I had another friend named Sam who did like 2-minute at reviews. So remember when Peter McCormick used to do his 2-minute Tuesday? Yep. It was never 2 minutes though.
It's 4 minutes, 5, yeah.
That was the funniest part about Peter's thing is it was never 2 minutes, but that was part of the joke, I guess. So seriously, if you have a lot of knowledge, say about just shows on Netflix, right? You could do a brief 2-minute synopsis of what's new on Netflix or whatever you're into. It could be anything. Me, it could be Japanese whiskeys, whatever. And literally just have a little 2-minute thing because there are people looking for something that they can listen to while evacuating their lower duodenum.
Sitting on the loo.
Yeah, sitting on the loo. There you go. There's a BBC joint called 6-Minute Vocabulary. I can tell you from talking to most of y'all need to listen to that. My vocabulary allows me to whack rhapsodically about, you know, the centrifugal pontifications of the day's, you know, popular topics. You know, anyway, you know, what had happened was me and the boys, we had come from my time in the incarceration. So there is definitely things out there that you can do just to get your legs, if you will, right? Your sea legs, I used to call it if you're on a boat. You could do short little 5-minute podcasts, just, you know, get it started and then build your way up. I mean, it's all practice. We talking about practice, you know?
Facts.
I'm just saying, get it done.
I think the get it done concept is literally all it's going to take. It's just a decision, honestly. That's going to be the deciding factor. And I know there's going to be people that are wondering, like, will traditional audio podcasts still be relevant once YouTube decides to make this a thing? Because I think a lot of people that are, like, I've heard even people that are very seasoned with their podcasts say, like, for example, Pat Flynn specifically came on his YouTube channel. It's like, we're deciding to turn the cameras on.
Logo song. I'm sorry. I just started to go dun, 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 dun. I was just bobbing in my chair doing the income stream song. Sorry, Pat. Sorry, Pat. Hey, you owe us $100, Pat.
$100. Yeah, show $100. I needed like a ching sound effect.
We see Pat in like 3-4 weeks. We just gonna roll them at the same time. Pat, what? You owe us $100. Why? Oh, we mentioned doing the podcast.
Talks about you in the show. $100.
Pat gonna be like, y'all better get up out of here.
It's like how my name is Pat on his book bag. It don't say bank account. It just don't say Hip National Bank. It's like, brother, you can figure it out.
Hi, my name is Pat Flynn.
Right. That would be a dope ringtone. If he hacked that a little bit, that'd be dope.
Yo, that'd be just money.
But Pat talked about
you are so on it because Pat, you know, Pat is literally a good case scenario of just pulling a random podcast out of his fourth point of contact.
His derriere. But he mentioned we're turning the cameras on. And I think most people now, especially since 2020, if you, even though like a basic setup or what have you, I experimented with this probably end of 2019 or something like that. And because I was still editing my content and I was still doing editing work, I just didn't want to add the workflow because the way I enjoy podcasts is conversational style. I don't necessarily always want it to be so structured, which I can, but I feel like the YouTube channel is so much of that already.
Yep. I like the conversational style because I feel like I'm meeting the person who's talking to me.
Right. We can, like it's been several times in this one where I'm just like, I want to go down that rabbit hole. I want to go to versus like, oh man, we pressed for time, but I would really love to talk about that. But it's going to be probably another year. It's always usually like before a guest comes back on, it's usually like a year unless something happens specifically why that person comes back. You know what I'm saying? Like guests don't come back to a podcast. So it's like, it's literally a year before you hear that person again. So why not? You know, so. You know,
it's funny you say that. I was in an interview this week and the interview was going fantastic and the vibe was energy. And then all of a sudden the host is like, okay, we got to go. And I'm like, man, we don't pay for the time. We ain't got to go nowhere. Like if your audience is getting value, I'm going to say something controversial AF. Write this down. Log it. Matter of fact, Donna, I'm going to make sure it's short so you can clip it and put it on your social media. I'm going to start from right now. Here we go. Clip this part. I'm going to say something controversial, people. Stop it with your structured shows. If the conversation is good and the conversation is moving and you've told your guests ahead of time, we might run long. Let the audience keep getting their value and stop doing this. My show is 45 minutes. My show is 60 minutes. You cannot put containers on good, valuable information. As a giver, you got to keep giving. And if the people are vibing, let the people vibe. Please stop with this show is exactly 58 minutes. It ain't TV. We don't have that. Let it flow, Elsa.
100%. And because of so much of analytics, and I know this is going to come up. So much of YouTube analytics is a thing. And because, like, even I talked about this on a recent live stream where I'm hesitant, or was hesitant, to put this on the main channel because so much of that, and especially taking that from like a hybrid where you may see some vlogs or content that's not necessarily the main reason of why you subscribed or what have you. So if you vibe with me, then you'll enjoy that content versus that may be YouTube training specific content, content creation specific content, stuff about cameras and tech and all the like. So I'm like, okay, I want to take that and put that as the primary focus content. So you have that literal vein of content. If you just only need that, boom, it's there. But I think because so much of what's been taught of what traditionally has worked for YouTube channels, that is going to screw a lot of people up. And it's for the reason I don't want to be beholden to, one, the fact that it's going to be so different than the regular structured videos. And when you are in the place of having a problem, I always talked about this, literally talked about this in the last episode, person, problem, pain point, the pastor framework from Ray Edwards. You're coming with the intent for a problem. Yeah, you don't want an hour and a half, 2 hour long show to try to find the 2-minute segment of the what you needed. It makes sense to make that 2-minute segment into a 2-minute video specifically for that pain point, so that people get the relief and they can move on to the next piece. But for podcasts, I'm like, I thought about it even after the live stream. I'm like, I'm going to put it on its own channel because I want it to breathe. I want it to live how I want my shows to be done. It may be a 10-minute episode. It may be a 20 or 30-minute episode. It may be an hour. And I didn't used to always have the gear fix in there. That's relatively new to the show. So I'm, talking. It may not always be up like tip 1, 2, 3. I'm just having conversation around that thing. And people are going to be so beholden and used to looking at analytics. They're going to misjudge what should be and should not be in their video podcast content.
Correct.
And they're going to, I think, hurt it in some respects for the overall value. Because here's the thing. People like VHS tapes. And this, if you, for the age demographic, for the show, depends. Most people are old enough. You understood the value of the please be kind and rewind, so you could restart the show at the beginning. But you also understood the value of, even if somebody wanted to watch a different movie, it wasn't like DVDs. You wasn't too much mad about somebody taking the VHS out of the player, because when you got back in the living room, when you got the control back of the remote, you could literally pick that episode and that show back up from where you left off at. And podcasts are very much so like that. In that same way, you pick up from where you left off at, so it's not that big of a deal. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of people are going to pay attention to that analytics and get hit.
All kind of crazy stuff. Because even like, when you're doing back-to-back content, right? Mm-hmm. We went as far, I'm not alone, I'm sure everybody had one, because you didn't want to get taxed for that $1. We had the little $15 rewinder. So I'll pull it out, put it in the machine and click it down. It's rewinding, but I'm already on to the next piece. So in your binge watching, right, you got like, say, the Lord of the Rings trilogy or whatever. When you got the first one out, you slapped it in the machine, you closed it, let it spin up, you just start watching the next one. So, I mean, to both points, the ability to come back to where you are, but it was just a way of making sure that, you were sort of doing the right thing. So the people like to put questions in that kind of don't matter. Will podcast, pass regular? I'm gonna say no, maybe. Who knows? Who cares? Doesn't matter. That is irrelevant to put on your face. What you really want to do is get your content out there and find out. You don't want to find out when it's too late, when another person who you think you know more than is already sitting 2 million deep on a brand deal, and you going, that could have been me. I know more about him than blah blah. Remember that Biggie joint on Life or Death? My stuff is more John Blaze than that. How come he get to be all that? Yeah, there you go. Don't be that person. So just put it out there. Because I will tell you this. Everyone says, oh, but video is so much better and, this, and that. But then people say, but podcasts are dope for the car because I don't have to watch. 2 things I picked up this week in my pay attention to the world. Looking for a new EV. Right, my EV, my lease is almost up. Looking for a new EV. What I really want from BMW is not going to be ready, so I might get something different for that 2-3 year period till everything is basically electrified. All the new stuff that's coming out, the dashboard go like that, like it's just screen for days.
Yeah,
right. So that's good. One thing about video podcasts is it will do stuff with that screen. No, we do not want you to look at it while you're driving, but turns out all of the new cars come with some automation. Don't hit nothing automation. So trust me, they're going to put that stuff on the dash.
The voice automated stuff. To that point, I'm going to interject. To that point, somebody told me, because when I first got let me mute her. I don't want her saying, when I got the Alexa and I was talking about all the different things. One of the first stories I did, I was like, Alexa, play the Video Simplified podcast. Playing Video Simplified podcast with Diana Gladney. On comes the most velvety voice you've ever heard. But the fact that I was told, did you know that you can have the Alexa in the car or whatever and I'm like, say what again? Because that's honestly better than Siri and contends up there with the Google Assistant. And I'm like, so Alexa is amazing. So the fact that you're going to be able to have all of those same things in your car, the fact that video makes sense. If you parked, you waiting for your food to come out, you waiting for somebody to get off work. It's plenty of stuff where we're sitting in the car for longer periods of time or whatever. And you don't necessarily want to be watching, 4K screen while you're driving. But the cars kind of starting to drive themselves now, so you may be able to wing it in certain scenarios.
The automation is going to stop you from hitting stuff, so that's one side of it. But you're going to do the glance, whether you like it or not. Even if you're listening, when they get to something good, you glance over, because I got what you call it, CarPlay. So I glance over to hit the rewind button to get back to that part again. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully, Amazon, if you're listening, Mr. Jassy, let me change her name. Oh yeah. Let me change her name because I want to call her Alize. I'm just saying.
I officially had my moment today. The SNL skit where they call it Alexa.
Black Theory?
No. The SNL skit where it was like Alexa for seniors. And it's like Allegra.
Yes.
So
Allegra. Yo, that
literally
is so good.
Today I was sitting there and I'm like, Alexis. And it saw it light up and it's like, that ain't my name. She ain't talking to me.
Yo,
and I'm like,
super funny.
I'm like,
that is so funny.
You need to be able to change the name.
The main thing is that people this is going to happen and it is probably going to be good. And we're telling you this now, just like we told you, don't wait to buy ZV-E10s because they all going to be out of stock. Now people is trying to buy ZV-E10s. It is going to happen. And whether it passes or not doesn't matter. But you all have a friend that doesn't really watch TV. So why not be ready for both, right? The video stuff will easily translate to audio. And then you get more people on your video side by telling them, hey, we're showing examples that you really need to see. So come over here. You know what I mean? And if you don't want to be on camera, you can just have graphics. You can have things that go along to the story up there. It could be B-roll. It can be a lot. I can tell you right now, somebody can go to Storyblocks, $100 or whatever, and put together a 14-minute B-roll clip, right? Play a nice little piece of classical music, and then be like, let me read you a story. A public domain story. Let's call it Hansel and Gretel, right? You can go to a website right now and look up public domain stories. And then you can come here and read said public domain stories with a nice little backdrop picture and whatever. And I know this because my homie just put up a 10-hour fireplace video. It's been up for like a month and it's already got like 3,000 views. Yeah.
Yule gets me every year.
He said he was going to copy my back, over here because I have my fireplaces running. And that's literally just a Yule log that I just keep it running because it looks good in my office. I live in Hawaii. I'm not going to use a fireplace, people. It'd be freaking hot, but it looks dope in my office. So I just have my old 2009 iMac running that video for, I don't know, about 6 months now. So yeah, my man's just put this thing up like not even a week ago and he already has over 3,000 views on it because there are people that working in a place where they don't want to be lonely. Before you called, I got Lo-Fi Girl right here on this phone into the Rodecaster Pro popping beats in my ear while I'm getting that work on. And then some person who can't touch the ground in the swing says, hey man, you want to record a podcast?
See, we was doing all right. We was doing all right.
Don't edit that part out. What's his name? Josh? Josh, don't edit that part. Judd. Oh, man. See how I messed up his name. Now he going to edit it out.
Now he going to leave it in. Throw one of them Instagram filters on there or TikTok filters. Put some makeup on Doc and just leave it like that the whole time.
The whole way through?
The whole way through. He come on. Aloha. I'm Doc Rock. I'm wearing lipstick.
The new one that says it's like the catfish filter and it shows your face all squeezed up and then you slide out and it shows you looking normal. That's both dumb and funny. Like some things are just funny and I just gotta laugh at them. But yeah.
Hey, that'd be good. So, final verdict for those creators, because we've mentioned quite a bit about creators that are large, medium, brand deals, stuff like that. For the average Joe Schmo creator, is it worth it to them to turn on the video and start a podcast if they don't have one? Or if they're already a content creator, add this to the repertoire? Your thoughts?
I think in a way, yes. Because even if you only get like 10, 15 listeners, one thing podcasting will do for you is allow you to be just a better speaker and a better speaker extemporaneously anyway, right? I told you I had the vocabulary podcast. When you're at work, when you're doing your Zoom meetings and stuff like that, you know what every person listening to this right now, what every person listening to this right now cannot stand. Bob, can you go over the February report for right now? Okay, February 2022, our trucking income is up by 20%, but due to rising gas costs and delay from some of our suppliers, there will be, done. Like
terrible.
Everybody in the Zoom like
terrible.
So if you were the podcaster, and they were like, Bob, can you go over the numbers? Yeah, man, it turns out February 2022, our numbers are up in the trucking, but due to some supply constraints and things like that, we are going to see a little dip. No worry, don't panic. We do have these under controls. We are putting in mitigating situations in order to alleviate this problem. So, yeah, I think it's going to overall be a good month, and I'll see you next month at the report. And they'd be like, thanks,
prayed
Bob.
For a meeting to go that well when I worked at the bank. That's why I stopped going to them. This could have been an email, and then somebody made the comment, but you don't read the emails. I mean, it could have been a Post-it note then. So
the reason why I don't read the emails is because you ain't learned how to write. So, I mean, so again, if you were the blogger, people read your emails because you know how to write. If you are the person that has to give these reports and you're a podcaster or a YouTuber or some other creator where you're forced to talk extemporaneously, you sound good. So what I literally just did, just playing around, I gave a piece of bad news in the monthly meeting with the enthusiasm to say, boss, don't sweat it. We still got it, though. I don't know if you caught that. Right. I literally gave bad news. Like our shipping is delayed because of supply constraints. But I bought that big Doc energy and they're like, oh, wait, he just told us we lost we just lost 40 grand. And why am I feeling good about it? You know, so that's the dude you want to be.
And it's interesting. I had a supervisor that when I worked at the bank was going through, they had brought in some company to teach them how to do public speaking or whatever. Okay, well, at that time now, I'm 2 years, I think, solid into maybe pushing 2, going on 3 or something at the time. Content creation, like I'm doing a video a week, and this is coming after doing multiple videos, 30-day challenges that my business coach put me through. And I did that like 3 times. And so now he's like, well, he's talking about how he had stand there, they're recording them, and they would go through that presentation that they would have to give, like 5-minute presentations, then 10 minutes, and on and on. What are the things that they did, not necessarily wrong, but wrong? And then what are things they can do to improve on? He's like, I have my hand in my pockets, or you kind of fidgeting and shifting and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sitting there like, yep. And he's like, you probably don't have to go to one of those or anything, do you? I was like, nope. He's like, well, how did you get good at speaking? I said, I literally do the equivalent of a presentation every week on YouTube for a YouTube video. At the time, I was teaching and co-leading the teen church, which means I had to prepare my talk, prepare my assets, and I'm working with teens. You better bring it, or you're going to get ignored, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to play you.
Spitball in the back of the neck.
Yeah, like, man, please. I'm like, so, you know, I'm not having it. And so I'm like, okay, well, like, so, and it was very comforting, but it's also like, quote unquote, bad. And one of the young ladies that I guess you could say was problematic for other teen church leaders. And she would say, Miss Diana, she came with me, she said, Miss Diana, I don't listen to none of the rest of them, but I listen to you. And I'm like, well, ain't supposed to say that, but thanks. You know, but I noticed, like, I didn't have the same issues that others would have, even out of the guys or whatever. You know, you obviously got snacks and stuff. That's only going to hold them for so long.
Sometimes the cool teacher wasn't the cool teacher. They were the most prepared and cared the most. You know, they might have been the hardest on homework or whatever, but you could tell they cared, and you could tell they took some time to do their lessons.
Exactly.
So you was more engaged. It didn't have to be, they let you slide and chew gum and, you know, like drink sodas in class and nothing like that. It wasn't always the case.
Yeah, and it's like, and that was the thing. It's like, so we had YouTube videos to watch. You can pull it up on your phone if you want to. You can save it, whatever. You get QR code, pull it up. It was a little bit different because you need to have the QR code app. It used to be, now you don't anymore. But it's like that stuff to fill out, or it's a game. So, like, it was some combination of all of that mixed in with whatever verse of like the Bible, scripture stuff that we go in, but to make it more realistic for today and like applicable for them, like make it make sense. And then be honest and be like, or this don't make sense to me, or honestly, this is something I still struggle with. I don't get it. I don't think, you know, it's like, so that's something I have an issue with. So here's where I can say what I've learned, blah, 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 and on and on. I never had no problems with the kids in teen church like that. So not comparative to others. And the other thing also, like with this boss that I had at the time, he didn't understand like content is way beyond just a 5-minute presentation. I'm doing this every week. Yeah. Every week. I'm producing a video for YouTube, and I would still do other dedicated videos that didn't go to the YouTube channel in the Facebook group. I'm doing introducing lives. And so I'm like, I'm doing presentations, and that's why most people don't get like I'm introverted or whatever. They're like, well, you got extrovert. No, I'm just growing the muscle so that I can deal with being and learning to be more holistic, and I'm trying to be straight down the middle, not too skewed to the left, not too skewed to the right, just straight down the middle. That's the goal. Yep.
I always say,
not to lean into that. Gray. Yeah.
Live in the gray as much as possible. It's funny, I'm wearing this jacket today. Live in the gray as much as possible. Because again, we're just hard to binary on stuff that you kind of shouldn't be binary about. Yeah. Everyone thinks I'm an extrovert. No, I'm an ambivert. I can go either way. Right? Like when I got to do my work, I can do my work. Most of the time, I want to be at home by myself. Don't nobody say a word. I am busy watching something by Marvel or Star Wars. That's what it is.
Shout out to Storm. You know, but you know, I just
$100.
$100. X-Men, Marvel Studios, $100. $100. Hey, I get
funny. I'm gonna clip that. My brother-in-law Jesse works for Marvel Cinematic Universe. He runs props and sets. I'm like, Jesse, you owe us $100.
Make that check payable too. All right. You know, so, but it was funny because he was talking about all these different things that he was challenged with. And I get it. Teach your own, go through your own path, whatever. But waiting to develop a skill once the company says it's like a requirement or whatever. And you can see like actively trying the different leadership skills or stuff. And I got John Maxwell all over. I got, you know, Nightingale Conant material all over. You know, I had the audio at the time. I was like Strangest Secret on repeat, 10X Rule by Grant Cardone on repeat, like actively instituting those things, not just at my job, but also in my personal life and the things that I felt were important, purposeful work. So it's like, if we look at presentations, well over 1,000, if not into the thousands, from YouTube videos. Let's not talk about just real life presentations, or just like, you know, literally a presentation every day. So the fact that, you know, I'm like, I don't need to go to no presentation training. I'm doing them already every single week.
I am the presentation.
I am the presentation. I am
it's just, it's unfortunate that many people wait until, if you're waiting until something is proven before you try to learn it, it's already too late, and the cost to learn is going to be more. And I remember telling people this all the way back, you know, when websites first started coming out and being a thing. And just regular people started building, you know, the Angel Fires and the GeoCities of the world. I was like, yo, this Angel Fire GeoCities, like press a button type thing, is short lived. You better learn how to code or learn how to work a WYSIWYG editor like Dreamweaver. There's some folks that listen and have long-standing careers as front-end developers, and there's others that still going, man, I still got to work on this website, and I need somebody to do it for me. I was like, man, we both picked up those HTML books at Barnes & Noble the same day. We was there. I've built thousands of websites, you know, and then they still be the one like, oh man, I got this website, I can't even afford it. I was like, man, back in the day when it was easy to just know the basics, you didn't want to do it. Now, here's a funny thing. You didn't have to become a coder, but you're hiring the person that you're trying to hire right now would go better because you understand them. And the reason why you're here right now is the last person suckered you and took your money. Yeah. But had you taken the time to learn it when you didn't know if the web was going to be a thing, you wouldn't be in this boat. Yeah.
See, it's the same way I find with hiring people that either have creator skills or made content creation at some point, like they did content creation. That to me, and I can honestly foresee the bigger I grow this company, the bigger I grow the team, it's more or less going to be comprised of people that understand content creation or have done it, or are doing it for themselves already. Because even like going through interviews for the stuff that, like, people make this, and it, I know, pisses off some people specifically with wanting to hire an editor first. And again, you know nothing about nothing. They just point to a video and say, I want it to look like that. Don't know nothing about the raw files of what goes into the actual recording, the presentation and preparation of it all. The stuff that I teach when it comes to the NLQ, you don't know how they doing that, or next logical question for those that haven't watched video. Also going into things like seed and lead method, all this other concepts and stuff that I teach. Smile and hold. Everybody got their head down. It's like, and thanks for watching. Like, how are we supposed to transition with the head? Like, you know,
dude,
what I'm saying?
I've been doing this for years, and I find myself getting to the end of the sentence and letting the volume drop a little bit. So I spend a heck of a lot of time fixing curves. And I'm like, yo, please stop that. Now, luckily, Alphonic covers a large portion of that. But yeah, even with the smile and hold method, which, you know, I think most of us in broadcast, we know, it's funny. Like, I catch myself all the time making crazy mistakes that require me to do extra work. So, hey, don't feel bad. We all do it.
Yeah, but you get better by consistently doing it.
100%. You have
That's the difference.
There's no shortcut.
Yeah. So many of you guys that came from traditional media landscapes already knew that stuff. And it's funny because I'll see those like comments specifically. Oh, I remember I worked at the news station. Oh, I remember I did. You learn that in that craft. Now entrepreneurs, people that are just getting into content creation, no matter what their interest is around, they're getting in the content creation space, now have to learn these different things. So I understand, like, where, especially talking about, like, we've been going for a long time, close to 2 hours right now. But at the same time, there are certain things that we've done, whether that's the proximity effect, even for certain examples, if you want to say, hi, my name is Dog Rock. Like when you would go, when we're doing a live stream, like you play the boom, boom, boom for the airplanes and all of that, like you put your mouth close to the mic to get the proximity effect. There are things that we're doing, feels like subconsciously, but also consciously, to make sure there's no hard plosives. Nobody's just like pow, pow in your ear with the audio.
I was listening to somebody today that was heavy plosives, and I was like, yo, fam, you're bothering me, and I want to hear what you got to say. But on the little somebody saw Mary like baseball that Apple made, them plosives hurt. Something about Mary. That's what the name of the movie is. And it's like, yeah, I love my baseball speaker. It sounds fantastic until you be the plosives. Be like, people. I'm like, yo, don't do
Still
that.
Can't even get it on. Can't even do it.
I can't
the
do it on purpose.
Right.
Well, I've been trained not to do it, so I can't do it when I'm trying to do it. So,
or if people were paying attention, you've like said something really loud, like just in normal conversations. I've laughed. We've had various moments in the audio video quality where you should have heard it get distorted, or you traditionally would have heard it get distorted, but you didn't.
We got muscle memory to know to lean back a second before you go in, right?
Right.
You know, the best one, I try to explain this, and I try to teach people about proximity effect. Watch your girl, ex Tina. Yo, when she get down there and she be like, cause you're beautiful in every single way. Like she do the finger tapping, and she's adjusting her volume, because when she hits that beautiful in the middle, yo, that joint is loud. But she's not killing you because you want it to be soft, and so she fades it out just by moving her arm, and she does it probably better than anybody. Her and the little one, big name, Ariana Grande.
Little one, big name. Wow.
Hey, yo, that kid can belt.
Wow.
That
little one, big name.
Belt. Oh my goodness. Watch her really, really sing. Stop clowning, you know, everything people say or whatever. Just listen to her sing. Yo, she is amazing, and such good voice control. That's my technique, fam. That's no different than what we do here.
I think if people play their cards right and they want to get into this video podcast game, that honestly will make you such a better content creator. Get 50 episodes into your show.
Straight.
Into it, like it could be 20 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you're going to do. The fact that you now add on that bit of, first of all, I can tell you from a micro content standpoint, go to masteringmicro.live. You can get a lot. Like how many clips, how many pieces? We could be dishing this out for the next 6 months. One piece of content. And there's multiple pieces of content hitting every week across multiple platforms. So like you're going to become such a better content creator. You're going to become such a better editor. Become such a better orator. A better note taker and organizer. Tremendous, like ton of other stuff. Like you'll become so much better than you really realize if you play your cards right. So I think, and it boils down to it, video podcast is going to be a thing. I think it's going to be a huge thing. And I think it's going to be even bigger for the creators, because maybe the podcast doesn't explode, but that has nothing to say with the regular stuff that you creating content around that can be life-changing for you. Doc, so pumped to have you on the show, man. So dude, glad you're here.
Fire. I just can't wait to see what you do with this. And you always bring just so many good things. It's kind of funny. I'm just like, where does she get all these ideas from? And I'm going to have to start smoking that.
Smoking that. Little fun.
Yo, this is gonna be fire, fam. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on, and just, you know, you keep doing you, because you know what you do really, really well. You listen to folks and you ask the right questions, and that's something that I've been working on teaching my people too, is, you know, how to ask the right questions. And so if you decide to get in the podcasting game and you do interviews, do yourself a favor. Never ask the most question. Don't ask the most and don't ask the worst. I watched somebody do it yesterday and I peeled my skin. What was the most important thing you can't do that to folks. You're about to get them hurt while they got to try to qualify, a level of something. Don't do that. It requires too much thinking and you can get people stuck. So that's my tip.
Love it. Doc, where can people find out more about you?
You can find me all over the internet at DOCROCK or somewhere causing trouble to you, basically.
Right.
And my YouTube channel, and of course, at Ecamm. So that's where I tend to be.
Facts. And we will list that all in the description as well as on the site. Brother, thank you so much for being here. It's been a plum-pleasing pleasure to have you here and just really, really dive deep into this conversation. I'm so pumped to have you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. It's awesome.